You're listening to the Cooking from Scratch podcast. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to welcome health coach Renee Bellinger. Renee is an expert in helping people develop healthy habits that lead to sustainable lifestyle changes. She shares her insights on habit change, mindset, and nutrition, and gives you practical tools to make lasting transformations in your life. Whether you're looking to improve your health, reframe your relationship with food, or just create a routine that sticks, this episode is packed with inspiration and actionable advice. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Aaliyah Iden, and with over 15 years of cooking in professional kitchens and at home for my family, this is the first non-cooking cooking podcast that shares how to make cooking easier so you can feel inspired and motivated to cook in the midst of your busy life. It's the beginning of 2025, and this year I've refocused the podcast and I'm leaning more into the healing aspect of homemade meals. A couple of years ago, I started eating high-protein meals, which resolved some health issues I was having. Then this fall, I started a cooking membership for high-protein eaters to share my favorite recipes and meal plans that I developed to help others on the same journey. When you tune into these episodes, you'll hear from health and fitness coaches and healers about the role and benefits of high-protein eating. Stay tuned for more. So hello, everybody. I'm here with Renee Bellinger, and she is a health coach and behavioral change expert. And I wanted to have her here today on the podcast because I'm still talking about high-protein eating here. And high-protein eating oftentimes is a change in how we're already eating. And so it's not just about the recipes and the meal plans and all that stuff that sounds amazing. It's about knowing how to change your behavior. And it's not about willpower, from what I understand. Right? Can we start there with the willpower thing? And what is willpower? I think people get into a new way of eating and they're like, oh, there's willpower. And then it takes 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks. And then they're like, oh, it's gone. And they're not doing the new thing anymore. I mean, can we just start there? What is willpower? Why is that not what you want to be using when you're trying to change how you're eating?
Well,
or maybe it is.
When you think about it, it's just like exerting more energy, right? Like the brain likes to conserve as much energy as possible. And so if you're constantly trying to tap into this, like you use a lot of energy throughout the day, and your goal would be to not always have to rely on that because that's another source of energy. Think of after a long day, you might find it hard to resist your snack drawer. It's a good example because if you've had a long, stressful day, just because you're already depleted with energy. So what you want to do is find systems that can help you start to build in behaviors that become habits, because then it's like less energy. You're thinking about it less. It becomes automatic, and your brain can expend energy elsewhere. So you don't really want to tire yourself out.
That's the best explanation I've ever heard. That's
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. It's too hard. So make it easier on yourself and find a system that works.
Right.
Create a system, like notice your system. And there was something, so your Instagram, it's Renee Bellinger, or is it Coach Renee?
Coach Renee Bellinger.
Coach Renee Bellinger. And this is where I found that, I mean, it says on there that you help women over 40 build consistent habits, and it's specifically in relationship to eating and exercise that you help?
Any health behaviors. So I'm actually working with a client right now who wants to get back to an exercise routine after having a period of time where she hadn't exercised. So any health behavior that women are struggling with, I am here to help them.
That's awesome. I love it. I've got a couple questions. I'm just going to jump right into this one. Okay. Do you have an opinion about the word diet? It's a word that I try to avoid when I speak because I feel like it has a really bad connotation with it. Like, as soon as we think we're on a diet, it's almost like we're going to fail. Do you know what I mean?
Because you mean diet?
Yeah, like the mindset itself.
Or do you use...
I almost go out of my way to avoid it, and I think it's almost obnoxious. I'm like, I could probably just say it in that sentence, but I don't want to say to my people who I help with high protein eating, I don't want to say you're going on a high protein diet. Do you know what I
Oh,
mean?
really? Okay.
Because then I
So
feel like it's somehow like this thing I don't know. Is there any like, does that even make sense?
I hear you.
Okay.
I never
Okay.
thought about it like that. But I
Yeah.
think in the context of what you do, I can see it a little bit. So, I mean, I like reminding people that diet's also a way of eating, right? It's not necessarily has to be associated with a calorie deficit and fat loss. So, I would say, like, if someone were to ask me, I guess, like, what type of diet, I mean, I would say I have a balanced diet, but I do also have a high protein diet. So someone who said, do you have a high protein diet? I would say yes. Um, I mean, I do think that people don't understand the differences. In my mind, I differentiate between diets and fat loss. So
Oh,
and people tend to conflate the two, but I look at a diet as more of a weight loss, and you don't care. Well, you might not even know that, like, when you are losing weight rapidly, or when you try to lose weight as quickly as possible, like, you lose everything. You lose your water, you lose fat, but you also lose muscle mass, and it impacts your bone density. Whereas, like, a fat loss phase is trying to maintain as much lean mass, muscle mass as possible, which therefore protects the bone density, but also, getting rid of the things you don't want, which is like extra fat and water loss. So I do differentiate between the two. And yes, it's tricky. I'm a health coach. Women come
okay.
to me for fat loss. Some women come to me for fat loss. And so
Okay.
one of the things I do is educate them on the fact that a fat loss process is a slower process, but in the long run, especially for women over 40, like, the more muscle mass they maintain, the better off they are
Right.
health wise. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's true for everyone, but
Right.
definitely once you
Right.
start losing muscle mass in your 30s, like, you
Right.
want to hold on to as much as possible.
Yeah. I love that differentiation. That makes a lot of sense. I think the thing that I thought about this when you were talking that bugs me about the word diet is that people automatically think constriction or restriction, right? And then it sets your mind up for this, like, that thing where you're only thinking about the thing you can't have, and then that's when you really want the
Hmm.
thing you can't have. And I think that's what I am cautious about saying to my people. Like, I'm not going to tell them that carbs are bad because they're not, right? There's certain things you want to eat that are going to help you gain what you want. But because I was trying to explain this to a friend the other day, she's like, "What's this high protein thing you're doing?" And I was like, "Just more protein." And she's like, "So no carbs?" And I was like, "No, I eat carbs." And so she was just scratching her head, like, what are you talking about? What are you doing?" And I'm just trying to say to her, "No, you prioritize the protein, but that doesn't mean I don't eat a piece of cake if I want a piece of cake. I just am very aware of how I will feel afterwards, if it will help me hit my goals." But I try very much not to feel guilty about it either. Like, I don't want to feel guilty for eating the cake because I think that
Right.
sets you up for this kind of bad food, good food, unhealthy relationship with food, I guess is what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. It does. And I mean, that's why I like the term balance. Because what I realize is that most of the women I work with, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but if anyone
I'm
over
over
40,
40. I'm over 40.
we've been inundated with, like, diet messages since, I don't know, probably like the late 80s that I can
I
think
think
of.
that's
You have,
true.
like, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, you have
Oh, that's
Oprah and all of her
right.
nonsense. You have,
Totally.
you know, diet after diet after diet, slim fast diet, special K diet, and, like, none of this, like, really has taught people how to eat. And people don't know how to eat, especially, like, adults over the age of 40, because it was all about crazy fake health information that was out there. And so one of the first places I start with clients is, like, this is a balanced plate, right? Like, ideally, you want to aim for, like, half a plate of vegetables at every meal, at least a quarter of your plate protein, quarter of your plate starchy carbohydrates. And if you cook with that, I wouldn't even worry about it, is what I say to people, like, but if you don't like having like a tablespoon of fat, starting there, like, and having the concept of a balanced plate helps people then understand, like, oh, all foods fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
It's like you can see, yes, like even if you have like 2 servings of protein on your plate or 1.5 servings of protein on your plate, you're still, there's still room for like a starchy carbohydrate. And
Totally.
so reminding people that, yes, like all foods fit. And I think that is such a novel concept for a lot of adults.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I love the concept of a balanced plate because it's
Yeah.
so visual. And that's actually
Mm-hmm.
how I started to be able to do the high protein thing because, when you're looking at like a piece of chicken or like some ground beef, you don't know how much protein's in it, right? You're like, okay, I know I'm supposed to be getting this much. How much of this am I supposed to eat to get the thing? But then once you start being like, really, I started looking it up. I was like, okay, one
Yeah.
chicken breast is going to give me this much, or one can of tuna. And then I started to visualize it on my plate. I'm like, okay, that little pile, that's going to give me my 30 grams that I'm aiming for. And then I'll fill in the rest based on, with, like you said, the complex carbs and the veggies accordingly. Right. But I think that visual is so, so important. And that really relates to what you were saying. People don't know how to eat. People don't know how to build a plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I love that. One of the things you said on your Instagram that I was seeing that I love, this post I loved, it said you don't need a cleanse or a reset or a detox to jumpstart your nutrition journey. Can you say a little bit more about that? I think that is such a popular way for people to get started in it. Can you talk about just a little bit more about that idea that you don't need one?
Well, first of all, your liver. If you have a
Okay.
liver,
Right. Right.
that's like you're already ahead of the game because your liver naturally does that for you. So that's
Right.
always a benefit of
Right.
having a liver. But I mean, it's a bad way to make a quick buck because the
Right.
reason why these things seem to work is because you're engaging in what I call like foundational health behaviors. Like you're probably eating foods that are minimally processed. You are not drinking. A lot of these detoxes even have you set some sort of movement goal. So you're probably moving more than you would naturally would. And especially if you're not engaged, like drinking alcohol, you're probably sleeping better. So all of these, the reason why you feel better on a detox is because you're doubling down on the health habits. Now, a lot of detoxes too have you restrict a food group, like a starchy carbohydrate. And even if you look at the word carbohydrate, hydrate, hydro is in carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So carbohydrates are made up of water. And so you remove those from your diet, you lose a ton of water weight, and then like voila, it seems like something magical happened. And it's just like nature doing what it does, your body responding to what you have. Does that mean that you shouldn't eat carbohydrates? No, it just means like when you do eat carbohydrates, that's why the scale is a little higher. So, but carbohydrates are also, they have fiber in them, they have like micronutrients, they have things that your body needs to feel its best. So even if you don't have the water weight, you're still missing some key micronutrients and fiber from your diet. So you don't need to do a detox
Right.
or a
Because you
cleanse.
have a liver. I love it. That's straightforward. Our liver is there doing its job that we don't have to
Right,
tell it to do.
exactly. And when you're talking about that cycle of restriction, I mean, yes, usually after periods of restriction, there are periods of indulgence, and there's it's called the what the hell effect. It's like
Oh,
when you restrict something and then you indulge a little bit, and you're like, oh, you start to feel like a secondary feeling, and then you're like feel negative about it. So you try to restrict and then you have a little bit and then you're just like, what the hell? And then you have a secondary negative emotion. And then how do you soothe it? Through like more comfort food. So, or
right.
more of what you were restricting.
Right.
So that's another thing too. And I see it all or hear it a lot, like people then end up doing like quarterly detoxes or resets at their gym or with a trainer that they liked, because it's like they're always chasing that feeling and they couldn't maintain it, and they internalize it and feel like it's them. And it's like, well, no, it's not you.
Hey there, Cooking from Scratch podcast listeners. If you've been paying attention to previous episodes, you know that health is one of my biggest motivators for cooking. When I started eating high-protein meals a couple of years ago, it gave me more energy and resolved other health issues I was having. This, in turn, inspired me to start sharing the recipes and meal plans I created using my 17-plus years of experience as a chef and recipe blogger with other health-conscious eaters. If you're on the high-protein meal train, or even if you're just curious about it, listen up, because I have something that will help you eliminate the guesswork from high-protein eating and easily hit 30 grams of protein at every meal. In my new free masterclass, 5 Simple Steps to Master Your High-Protein Meals, you'll discover why wasting time and energy on hours of meal prep is not the answer, and what you need to do instead to always have a craveable high-protein meal at your fingertips. In addition, you'll also discover the most important changes you can make now to end meal decision fatigue, and how to easily hit 30 grams of high-quality animal protein at every meal without feeling stressed or overwhelmed. When you tune into this no-cost masterclass, you'll walk away feeling confident that you are on track to hit your health goals. And for all who attend this live free training, you'll get a free copy of my 4-day high-protein meal plan, as well as the opportunity to join my high-protein meals membership for high-protein eaters. Now, all who registered for this no-cost class will receive a replay, but you're going to want to do your best to tune in live, because the high-protein meal plan that's full of incredible chef-created meals that take less than 30 minutes to make will only be available to those who attend live. To save your spot for this free training, go to www.soulspacechef.com/class. Again, that's soulspacechef.com/class, and I can't wait to see you there. Now, back to the episode. Oh, yeah. Say more about that. You had a post about that. It was something about emotions. Like you aren't your emotions. It's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like recognizing the emotions that you're having as stuff is happening.
Yes. But like, I think with like the detox cleanse, it's just more of you feel like you can't, I mean, it's hard to maintain that way of eating after it's done, right? Because it was either so restrictive or so strict. And you start to feel badly about the fact that you couldn't do something that's like, it's not a lifestyle change. It works best in the short term. Right. And so that becomes more of a mindset issue. It's a little bit different, but every time you do like a cleanse and then you can't keep it up and you're like, I need this help. I need to do this detox because like, I can't do it on my own. That's what I meant. It was more kind of like how you get in the cycle of continuing to do that. And I say that as someone who I've experienced that myself, you know, I've had periods of time where, I remember when I joined a gym a couple of years ago, like I was doing their meal plans every once in a while, and I wasn't really thinking about, and they were great, but I couldn't, it's like after the 6 weeks were over, I wasn't getting like the same meal plan over again. And I was like incorporating some of them, but like using my other meals, right? And so then it's like, oh, I'm going to wait for the next time it comes around.
Right.
And doesn't really teach you everything you need to learn.
Right. And almost like, maybe this is too strong to say, but it almost isn't empowering, right? If you don't really know the reason that you're doing the thing, if you're just kind of following along and then it's gone and you haven't really changed anything about the way your own behavior so that you can continue on with that, right?
Right. Yeah. And I feel like some of them, like they do teach you like why, but again, I don't know. I think there are different categories, right? Okay. So if you have something like a cleanse, I'm thinking about like juice cleanses or like detoxes where you have food restrictions, like you can't maintain that for a long period of time.
Right.
So then you're kind of always chasing that feeling.
Right.
And then I think with sometimes when you get like a set meal plan with, 6 weeks of recipes, then if you want to, and let's say you feel great and you've like maybe lost some weight,
Right.
your other option would be then to just continue with those like 8 weeks of meal plans until
Right.
you're tired
Right.
of them. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So, because you don't really learn like how to, yes, like make similar type meals or adapt them in a way that you can naturally do it. So yes, you're right. Like
Right.
it's just,
Right.
but some of the things are so restrictive that you can't continue
Right.
anyways.
Right. And they're not meant to be long term
Yeah.
necessarily, like a juice diet. So
Yeah.
instead of a cleanse, reset, detox, I think you named 3 things in that post about what you can be doing anyways. Because what you said was like, what you're doing is creating these new healthy habits. Isn't that what you said? And here's how you can do that kind of without a cleanse, reset, detox. You were like, oh, this is the exercise one, maybe. Schedule it. Be comfortable with doing the least
Exercise one,
amount.
yep.
I think I extrapolated it to high protein eating. That's right. Because I'm like, schedule it. I'm like, plan your meals and it's be comfortable with doing the least amount. I was like, you do not have to spend hours meal prepping. I promise. Like I do the absolute least amount. And then the reason I came to high protein eating, you said this, reflect on how you feel afterwards. That's why I stuck to it, because every time I ate a high protein meal and over the course of even a day, I felt so much better. And if I didn't have that reflection of like, well, how am I feeling about this? I don't know if it would have stuck. It would have just been another thing I was doing that I was supposed to be doing because I was over 40. But because I really, really felt those benefits, for me, it was really stabilizing blood sugar wise. Like I didn't get those afternoon lows. I had more energy, like really, really noticeable. Then it was easy to continue. Not easy, but
Easier.
It was more, easier to keep going with it because I couldn't argue with how I felt. Like,
yeah.
Who would want to make themselves feel crappy? Like, I don't I don't want to intentionally do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think like to answer your question about that cleanse and what you should do, I mean, that's like the sticky part with behavior change, right? It's like, I can't really tell you what to do because we're all different, but a good question to ask yourself is like, okay, how can I be 1% better today than I was yesterday? And start with like the smallest thing that you can do, because the 2 big tenets of behavior change are do something that you enjoy doing and that you feel capable of doing. So asking yourself like how you can be 1% better will help you answer that question in a very easy way. And it's like, trust your intuition with whatever comes up. Like, don't judge it, just do it. But if you, especially after periods of like a holiday or you have any sort of break, asking yourself, okay, like where can I start? Because like once you start, get a couple of days of getting the groove in, like more and more comes back to you. It just kind of, if you've done the work prior, it just starts to fit into place.
Yeah. I love that. Do things that you enjoy and that you feel capable of. I think that's why I focus so much on the recipes and the meal plans, because I don't think people are going to go to the bother of cooking unless they know what's coming at the end is going to taste really good or if they really like it.
Yep.
I always start a lot from that, like, what are you craving? Or what I tell people to do is start by always having 3 of your favorite proteins on hand in the house. Like you always have chicken thighs. This is mine. Chicken thighs, shrimp, and usually a ground meat of some kind, usually ground beef. Because I know I can make absolutely anything out of those. Yep. And I know that I have at least 3 ways to prepare each one that are really straightforward and simple. So I'm almost always going to look forward to those ingredients because I just really like them. I think you really have to enjoy what you're doing. Exactly. You can't be this like, oh, I have to go eat like this 30 gram of protein, like whatever it is. It's like, no, I get to go eat this absolutely delicious meal. And it might be like chicken kebabs, or it might be like a chicken chorizo, or like a delicious curry or a soup, or, oh, and there's 30 grams of protein in it, but wow, that was delicious. You know?
Yeah, like that. And I mean, it ties into exactly what we were saying about willpower, just like feeling like, oh, I'm excited to do something with grilled, like with chicken thighs, because I like them, even if that means just like pan searing them or throwing them in the oven or whatever
Right.
with some
Right.
seasoning on it. It's like, oh, I'm looking forward to that meal. Like I want to do it. It's not like, oh my gosh, I have to eat this thing. It just feels different. Like it's your intrinsic motivation versus someone being like, oh, I have to eat this meal I don't really want to eat, but I know I should eat it because it's like high protein or whatever. I
Right.
mean, sometimes you do also, we're adults. We
Yes.
have to.
Yes. Yes. There is that. I'm not trying to say like I'm like every single meal. Sometimes I'm like, whatever, I just know I got to eat this, but
Right.
it's
But
a
once
heck
you
of a
get
lot
into the
more.
habit,
Yeah.
it like,
Yeah.
or once you get used to eating that way, then it becomes more comfortable. It's funny because one of the things clients always ask is like, oh, like give me ideas of what you eat. And I'm like, well, I can and I will, but like, you're not going to want to probably eat like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what I eat, and none of it's bad, but like I
Right.
really load my protein in the morning and I tend to have protein powder in the morning. And a lot of people don't like protein powder. So it's like, yeah, me mixing my Greek yogurt with protein powder is like, you're not going to like that.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
might not like
Totally.
that. You could try it, but you're going to
Yeah.
have to figure out what works for you. So like your protein sources and just have fun.
Yeah, no, totally. It's so true. Like for me, I don't really like sweet stuff. So a lot of times people are like, this dessert has 30 grams of protein. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that sounds gross. Like I don't have a sweet tooth. So I'm not like looking for the thing that eats like ice cream, but is actually healthy for you. I'm like,
Yeah.
give me something savory like every single time. Maybe every once in a while I'll want something sweet. But yeah, you just have to find the thing that works for you and sounds good to you. And know that that's possible, but like eating well doesn't have to be what's the right word, like a prison. I feel like a lot of times, you know how that saying people say like, oh, does it taste healthy, which is like a euphemism for like not good, right? Things can
Right. It's
like
like you can
taste
enjoy
amazing,
it.
yeah, like and be healthy at the same time, because
Yeah.
if you're just
Yeah.
eating healthy, it just brings up I don't know, brown rice, cardboard boxes, just like
Yeah.
things that don't taste like good.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. I love that. So if people do want to work with you, how do you work with your clients? Do you do one-on-ones? You have a
I
program
do. I
or
have well, this year I have three, well, opportunities, like three main opportunities. This year I'm doing or hosting emotional eating master classes. My first one will be next month. And that's giving people the strategies to help manage emotional eating. It's just like a like 1 hour masterclass about like emotional eating. I also have a membership for women over 40 who want to learn how to just be more consistent with any health behavior without overwhelming themselves or their lives. Like I know that we're so busy at this age in life, and so I teach you how to take tiny action to improve your health and follow through more consistently. And support you because yes, it takes a little bit longer, but then you develop habits and systems. And that's more kind of like a do it with you kind of program, the membership. And then I also do one-on-one where it's definitely more hand holding. I have a 6-month and a year-long program, and we just like really dig deep. You have weekly accountability, can't really hide as much, and we just
yeah.
like help you really learn what your body needs at this age and stage of life and build the best health habits for you.
Yeah, I love that. That's so great. And you said your Instagram was
Coach
Coach
Renee
Renee.
Bellinger.
And how else can people get hold of you? Email is good, or through there, or
Email
yeah.
Renee RENEE at reneebellingercoaching.com is my
Awesome.
email. My website, everything is my name.
Right. Awesome. That's easy.
www.reneebellingercoaching.com.
That's awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for listening to this episode from start to finish. If you have any questions or comments about what was shared, please click on the link at the top of the show notes to send us a note. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a review on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, and share this episode with your friends.